Back then, we were not more than 8 to 10 people. So that meant that almost everyone had to pick up every single thing on the floor. So there have been multiple such moments where it felt like we're not small anymore. We moved from just being a payment gateway to a payment solutions company. We moved from a payment solutions company to a money movement company with banking coming into the picture. I would say that we still behave as a startup. You're expected to pick up AI. You're expected to figure out what mundane things in your job role can be picked up by AI, can be automated.
So, Chetty, could you tell me about the early days at Razorpay? How was it like back then? Hepzibah mentioned that you were new to design. So, what made you induce this culture of design at Razorpay back in the early days? Could you paint a bit?
I think the early days were a lot more chaotic than what you see these days at Razorpay. Because back then we were not more than 8 to 10 people. So that meant that almost everyone had to pick up every single thing on the floor. I still remember, again, a very naive college graduate that I was. I still remember a lot of instances where I had to talk to a customer, wearing a sales hat, wearing a customer support hat, etc. And I still remember, so we use Slack for all internal communications. And back in the day, all customer support chats also used to come to Slack. And I remember this one incident where a customer was initiating a customer support chat asking a question. And I joined that, the forum to answer the customer query. But I was still hesitating to do that because, again, I'm from design, don't know enough how to talk to a customer, etc. And almost everyone was around me back then in the day. And then, they used to look at me and then say, why didn't you answer that? Why did you wait for this long? Right? So cut to now where we now have a lot more folks on the ground, a lot more experts on the ground. So you do get that amount of help. But back in the day, it was kind of chaotic because you had to take up everything in one go. So I would say that that's one memory that kind of still runs in my mind a lot.
What is something that has stuck with Razorpay since the early days, culture-wise? What do you think is that special sauce that has allowed you to grow exponentially?
I don't think there's any special sauce here, but I would say that we still behave as a startup. No matter back in the day when we were around 8 to 12 people, cut to today with more than 3,000 people across multiple geographies, we somewhere bring in that ethos of being still a startup. So the same agility kind of comes into the picture. The same practices around challenging the status quo kind of come into the picture. And the flavor of the season is all AI, right? And I can more or less proudly say that we are probably, one of the few companies out there where, irrespective of the designation that you hold, irrespective of the function that you're working at Razorpay, you're expected to pick up AI. You're expected to figure out what mundane things in your job role can be picked up by AI, can be automated, right? So that's the level of push that only comes when, right from the top to down, when everyone thinks of us as a startup and they don't just write it off saying that, okay, we are a big company, things work differently, we can't be that fast anymore, right? So I would say that those principles kind of, stood true for us even after 10 years. And that's been helping amazingly well for us.
And can you share one of the most crappiest things you've done in the early days to really sort of signify the startup journey?
There are a lot.
One that sticks out.
Yeah. So the usual, what they call jugaad stuff, right? So pre-2015, right, like before Razorpay, the entire process of getting access to a payment gateway for an Indian business involved a lot of steps. And one of the messiest steps was the paper onboarding. Like you had to submit this huge of a document, to the regulation to kind of, to the banks just to get access to a payment gateway. And even after that, it's still doubtful, like if you'll get access to a payment gateway or not, right? We wanted to change that. One of the ways to change that is to just say, hey, your customers of Razorpay, everything is paperless for you. You upload your documents on our portal and you're fine. But the point is, at the back end, the still paper onboarding still worked in the ecosystem. So the messiest that I remember was every customer that we used to work with, while we gave the best experience for them, giving them the paperless onboarding, fully online onboarding. But at the back end, we printed all of these papers, made all of these big stacks of files, and hit a lot of post offices, hit a lot of banks, and gave it. So that's one example that comes to my mind.
That's awesome. And so, last question: can you share a moment where you thought that Razorpay was not just an early stage startup and it meant something much bigger? Like, what was that moment for you? When did that sort of strike?
I think every single milestone that we've met, more or less the very next day, it suddenly hits you that we are bigger. I remember back in the day, so we used to have this huge monitor in the office which showcased monthly GMV numbers, right? So we knew that coming this Friday, the number will hit 10 lakhs for the first time. So 10 lakhs Indian rupees GMV in a month, processed in a month from Razorpay. So we ordered a huge cake, had a small celebration and all of that. And the very next day, it felt like, okay, this is done. What's next, right? So every time something like that happens, it definitely, the very next day you feel, okay, now we are far bigger. When we moved from just being a payment gateway to a payment solutions company, and after that, a year later, we moved from a payment solutions company to a money movement company with banking coming into the picture. And very recently, booking some accommodation over Airbnb, I again saw Razorpay over there. So, right? So anytime you see something huge like that, it gives you a sense of satisfaction, and also it kind of puts you in a challenging position that, okay, the next goal should be far bigger now, right? So there have been multiple such moments where it felt like we're not small anymore. Like back in the day, the introduction, how I used to introduce myself was more around, hi, I'm Chetty Arun, I'm from Razorpay. Razorpay, by the way, is a company who does so and so and so. But these days, that's not required anymore, right? Like these days, I get calls from my relatives saying, hey, I've seen your ads on TV. When are you going public? We want to invest. Looks interesting and all of that, right? So the conversation fully flipped. So good to be in these shoes as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah.